So OG have just announced their new lineup following the benching of Valde and Niko, and the two new players are NEOFRAG and F1KU. And I suspect for a lot of you watching, maybe you're not super familiar with these two players. I thought we'd actually kick off by discussing who are they and what have they kind of done in the past. So first off is the more recognizable name, which is NEOFRAG. Now NEOFRAG, 21 years old, Czech player, played for about 2 years over on Sinners. And I think his real breakout probably came in Pro League last year, in the summer of last year, just after the player break, where Sinners had a pretty good performance. And on that team, Oscar and NEOFRAG at the time were the standout pieces. And you could really see how NEOFRAG was developing as a rifler and really coming into his own. So I think NEOFRAG has been on the radar for a lot of teams for a while. I heard some rumors that he did get offers from big teams or potentially thought about moving to big teams from Sinners. And finally now he's got his chance to play for a really kind of top-end organization, have a great chance, you know, in the top flight. Now, the second player they've chosen to go for is probably the lesser-known one, and that is F1KU. Now, F1KU, 18 years old, and he's played really only for one professional level team, and that is AGO, and he's played there for 2.5 years. And if you haven't read his kind of statement, when he joined OG, he said that his time on AGO was really valuable in developing his skill set as a player and learning about professional level play and team environments and stuff like this. And F1KU of late had a really great performance at Pro League, playing on LAN. I casted with a game with Mike where he dropped 40 kills against EG, who maybe aren't the toughest competition, but all of those players have a lot more name value, for example, than F1KU, and he was absolutely destroying them. So F1KU's definitely got potential, and that might be a reason that they went for him. So the place to start with AGO, OG even, is actually the roles. And if you understand the roles, you'll understand why a player like F1KU makes a lot of sense for this team. So what roles do we have with the three existing players in Flames, Nexa, and Mantu? Now, Mantu, of course, AWPing both sides, that's set in stone. Nexa, CT side, is probably going to be anchoring a lot of sites. That's what he did on the old team, and what is likely to continue to be doing with the new one. So anchoring a lot of sites, playing on his own, you know, these sort of things. And on the T side, Nexa is going to play in the pack, middle of the map, so he can call around himself and coordinate the game like almost every single in-game leader does do. And around Nexa in the pack is going to be Flames. Flames almost exclusively in the past is played in the middle of maps, playing for map control, being kind of the spear point, and then letting a player like Nexa call a lot of what we're going to be going for, and Flames is there to find the frags. Now on the CT side, Flames plays a lot of rotator spots. He does anchor some sites, but for the most part, he plays rotator spots, and these are the ones he enjoys the most, having that freedom to get aggressive and go for kills and, you know, play around himself. So these are the roles we have at the moment, and the reason F1KU makes a lot of sense is because on the CT side, on AGO, he did anchor some bomb sites. There was a bit of variability, but I expect definitely on this new team for him to be an anchor on almost every single map on OG. And on the T side, on AGO, he did lurk a little bit. On some maps, he liked to do so. He liked to play some really tough spots. And this is why F1KU makes a lot of sense, is because you instantly fill this lurking role and he can anchor on CT side. And this was a big gap that they had on the team after losing Niko and Valde. So F1KU, role-wise, perfect sense. He's still a young player, and you can let him grow into these roles. And, you know, with good coaching, good leading, I'm sure he can learn how to do it even better than he does at the moment. Now, the tricky one is NEOFRAG, because NEOFRAG, in my eyes, is very, very close as a player to Flames. And I had a quick look at his positions that he did play on Sinners, and they're really similar to Flames. Plays a lot of the same spots on both sides of the map. Likes to play in the pack T side, going for that map control, going for kills. CT side, strong rotated positions, rifling spots, connector and Mirage, for example. So immediately, we've got a problem. NEOFRAG and Flames are going to have a bit of role clashes, and one of them is going to have to take a back seat, play more lurk roles on T side. Maybe on CT it's not a huge problem. Maybe Nexa and F1KU are going to anchor all the sites. They can still play rotator spots, but one of them is probably going to be playing some positions that they haven't played in the past. So that's why NEOFRAG is a little bit more tricky to kind of see the thought process now. And I'm sure when they did go for these players, there were a lot of discussions about the roles, and they probably thought a lot in advance about what's going to be done, because there's going to be quite a lot of changes. So that's why I think F1KU makes a lot of sense, and why NEOFRAG is going to be more work for their team. So now looking at this new lineup, What are the pros of this team? What do we like about it? Why can it make sense? So the first place is obviously youth. Flames, NEOFRAG, FIKU, extremely young players, really kind of still on their upward progression through their scene and through their careers. And even Mantu and Nexa are really not that old. So the average age of this team is only 21.8. 21 years old is the average age of this team, and that is extremely low for the caliber of organization that OG has. And obviously with that, you can expect the players to grow beyond this. You can, mold them a little bit more to what you like. They're not going to be set in their ways. So that's kind of a huge bonus for this team. And with players like this, the raw individual skill on OG is extremely high now. These players are so amazing mechanically and individually. Some like Flames as well as a phenomenal individual talent, as is NEOFRAG, as is FIKU. And these together are going to be a really kind of explosive core of the team. Now, where I see some issues with this new OG one is the biggest one is almost certainly going to be communication. And I think the pressure on this team on Nexa is going to be biblical in terms of communication, setting up the team, and even in rounds talking a lot, because you've got a lot of players here that are young, a little bit inexperienced, and probably not used to taking on more of a leadership voice and talking a lot and having good communication. And for NEOFRAG and FIKU, certainly for FIKU, the step up in level of communication they're going to need to be doing is going to be enormous. So I see that as a big issue. And of course, there's a kind of an angle that maybe some of these players haven't played in international teams and spoken English so much, but I think that's lesser an issue beyond just a bit of inexperience and how to communicate well at the top level, being vocal, what you need to talk about, being kind of, really decisive and these sort of things. These are huge parts of top level professional play. And so much work goes into building up communication protocols and structures and really holding players accountable on how much you need to talk in different situations. And that, for me, is where this is going to be a big issue for them at the start. And it will take a lot of time to build up. And it's going to be so much work in terms of getting this a little bit better. Now, tangentially to kind of communication and this sort of stuff is the sort of experience across the team and the ability to set up bomb sites and ideas and bring and kind of really bring a good mindset and approach to professional level play. And I see this is probably an issue because only Nexa, in my opinion, is someone that's the sort of player that's going to be setting up the team a lot and bringing loads of ideas. I know someone like Flames likes to, bring some of his smaller individual ideas, but in terms of setting up macro and overall how the team's going to play, I think it's almost all going to be on Nexa in this squad, and it's going to take time for a FIKU, for a NEOFRAG to kind of adjust themselves to playing against top-level teams and how they want to approach situations and really getting vocal and talking about, when they come into theory sessions, I want to do this is going to work, or looking at prep and saying these sort of rounds are the rounds we're going to use on this team. So I think that's going to take time as well to build up. And of course, as we mentioned already, the roles are a bit of an issue, and certainly looking at Flames and NEOFRAG, there is a bit of a clash, and one of them, maybe both on different maps, this sort of thing, is going to have to take a step back, and you might see a dip in individual performance from what we're used to seeing with these sort of players. So thinking back to when OG first ended Counter-Strike at the end of 2019, it was a really different team. The team was Alexi B, NBK, Issa, Mantu, and Valde. And the first thing you kind of think when you hear these names is quite a lot of experience in this team, particularly in NBK and Valde. Alexi B as well at that time was reasonably experienced, a top-level player as well. And that's a big difference to this new lineup. When we're talking about some of the potential concerns, it's all off the back of experience and communication and understanding top flight play and how they're going to approach situations. That's unlikely to be a big issue with the old team and how it was set up. And of course, there's a lot of name value in some of these players as well. It's a big deal for an organization like OG that wants a big following. And that, again, is a big switch up. FIKU and NEOFRAG don't have huge name value, nor did Flames. I know he does now, off the back of his personality mainly, but certainly when he joined the team, not the biggest kind of biggest name in the scene, to put it that way. And OG's original team also was a kind of coalition of misfits, ones that fallen out of other teams for various different reasons, or something like Valde just found he couldn't work in kind of the second, third, fourth best Danish squads, and they all came together and formed this squad. Whereas players like FIKU and Flames and NEOFRAG got there in the end. These players are not misfits. They're being brought up from lower level teams. They're exciting younger talents. So overall, the team is such a different look from OG's original outlook on Counter-Strike. And it's looking more at the future, at the youth, at the potential, and maybe growing these players up. And I really do wonder if OG's aim is to, get this lineup in particular to a top level, or maybe it is a growth stage where they're going to take a year, 2 years to build up some of these players. Maybe some of them will even be sold on to bigger teams if they're really performing. And it's just a totally different idea to the original OG team that was kind of assembled to be top 10 at least and competing for, playoffs, if not top fours, and maybe some titles. And this is really, really different to their old approach. And I kind of, I do respect the change-up. I guess they looked internally and said what we did in the past didn't work. Maybe we need a whole different outlook on how to approach this as an organization. And they've gone in this direction. So in terms of my overall thoughts on the team and where they're actually going to be performing, I'd say first thing to do is kind of limit your expectations. I don't think this new team is going to perform that well very quickly because of all these issues with communication and figuring out the roles. And it's such a mix mash of personalities and cultures that I think it really will take a lot of time. And I will say, if this OG team does work and really does perform, I think massive credit goes to Nexa and Rugger and the other support staff, because building up this communication, building up a synergy, finding a play style that works, this is going to take months and months and months of review and inspection and thinking through different scenarios. I bet they'll go for a load of different individual positions on maps until they find ones that really click. And if they do actually pull it off, it's a huge statement, and particularly for someone like Nexa, who maybe for good and bad reasons didn't have an amazing reputation when he came out of G2 in terms of his own individual ability to call and set up a game. If he makes this team work, Nexa's stock value goes really high. And he's a player that is going to be highly respected for being able to grow young talent and think through different scenarios of how we're going to approach building this team. And, Nexa's value will go up enormously if this team works. So overall, I think I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I'm more excited, to be honest, to see individually where some of these players grow into and maybe honestly look towards them going on to top 5 teams in the future. So I'm really excited for FiKu and NEOFRAG in particular. I think this is a great opportunity for them. And there's a lot of questions on this team around how it's going to play out on the roles and stuff like this. So that for me is going to be the main kind of talking point, the main thing to watch. And I'm just excited to see how this team performs, because you've got so much youth, so much inexperience, and it'll be really fun to see how they develop. But anyway, I think that's all for this one. Maybe we'll do more videos like this on ROS changes and stuff in the future. I just thought this one was one where I've watched a lot of FiKu and NEOFRAG playing. I was quite surprised by the changes that OG chose to go for. And it is such a different outlook that it caught me off guard a little bit. So there you go. There's my thoughts. And I'll see you guys next time around.